Welcome to VPG's Virtual Water Cooler Chat Podcast, a platform that features professionals across a variety of industries and promotes growth mindset principles with a central pillar of championing the achievements of women. Our conversations explore a wide spectrum of backgrounds, experiences, and perspectives, creating a vibrant mosaic that enriches our collective understanding and strengthens our commitment to growth and empowerment. Today, VPG founder Ashley Chung is speaking with Tina Dorr, partner at Barnes & Thornburg LLP. Tina architects sophisticated intellectual property legal strategies, safeguarding innovations and trade secrets, aligning each client's IP assets with their distinct business goals, protecting inventions, elevating brands, and shielding assets from competitors. With a PhD in chemistry and biochemistry, Tina bridges scientific innovation and legal protection, working across technologies that range from chemical and life sciences to aerospace and beyond. This versatility allows her to ably guide scientists and engineers through developing market-advantageous inventions. Let's get started.
Hi, Tina. How are you doing?
Hi, Ashley. Good to see you. I'm great.
Happy Lunar New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
First thing first, I understand that you are very involved with GAPABA. Can you give us the full name of GAPABA?
It's the Georgia Asian Pacific American Bar Association.
And you are the chair of the Lunar New Year party, right?
Yes, I'm a co-chair. This is my second year in a row co-chairing the big party, which is the best food and the most fun. Not to take away from our gala, which is our biggest party, but Lunar New Year is our second biggest.
That's awesome. So you're based in Atlanta?
Yes.
All right. Tell us a little bit about yourself. And why did you say yes to Virtual Water Cooler Chat?
So I'm a partner in the IP group at Barnes & Thornburg in Atlanta, like you said. And so I represent companies of all sizes on how to use IP on long-term business strategy. And I focus on companies in life sciences, medical devices, advanced materials, and consumer products. One of the things I love to do is I help companies really stay 3 moves ahead. A lot of times legal comes in when there's a problem, when there's an issue, but I like to help early on align IP with business goals to provide a roadmap to anticipate where competitors are moving and to avoid those very short-term decisions that nobody enjoys. I have a background in chemistry, so I got my PhD here in Atlanta at Georgia Tech. And outside of work, I train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and I love to read. And I think that those 2 hobbies really reinforce how I think about legal strategy with the clients I represent. Oh, and why did I say yes? I love doing this. Everyone likes talking about themselves, but I love having this kind of dialogue, and I really loved seeing your presence online and how active you are in the community. And I could tell that you have a very fun personality, and so I knew that you and I would have a very fun conversation.
Well, I try. I'm not always fun.
Well, neither am I.
Thank you for saying yes. I asked you because I attended that panel at NAPABA convention in Denver, Colorado in 2025. That was my very first convention that I've gone to.
So what did you think? It's overwhelming, I know.
It is definitely overwhelming.
Yeah.
People know how to party there.
Yes.
It's a substantive issue, but they know how to party.
So you probably went to all the parties because it was your first time.
I did not.
You didn't? Okay, smart. That was smart.
Yes, because I think it will be sensory overload for me.
It is, yeah. No, that was very smart. I went my first couple times and I would not recommend it.
Did you go to the Rivian party?
No, I did not. I had a conflicting party. How was that? I heard great things.
That was great. So Stephen No was actually on my podcast, Two That's One Car. Give them a shout out. I just write people on LinkedIn. People say, how do you know all these people? You just write, and people will either say yes, no, or not respond.
But you know what? I love that. I'm curious. Do people usually say yes?
It depends. If they are interested in it, they will say yes, obviously. I don't have a lot of people that are non-responsive. So I'm actually kind of a 50-50.
Good.
I really prefer people just tell me no. Oh, let's talk about this part too. It's like people start a message with sorry. I was one of the type of personality to do that, but I've read a lot of different books. So I try to reframe my mindset because it doesn't help with your own confidence and it really weakens the message. And sometimes people will tell me, it's like, you should teach a master class when it comes to rejection, because they will say that I don't think I have the time and I don't think that I would want to do this right now. Doesn't mean that I cannot do it later. I said, you don't have to explain to me because you're protecting your boundaries. I'd much rather you do that because it says something about you.
Absolutely. And it says something about you too, Ashley. The fact that you receive so many no's knows, one of my very good partners, one of her goals in her business plan is to receive a certain number of no's every week. Because if you're not getting no's, then you're not putting yourself out there. And I thought that was a really great mindset. Sometimes you have to put yourself out there, and it's true. If you're not getting no's,
That means you're not trying hard enough.
you're not trying, yeah.
This is years of training. You train
Yeah.
jujitsu. I have been having a rejection training. So before, people was like, why are you taking everything so personally? When I was like working as a paralegal, it's been 6 years. So when you own your business, the bucks stop there. But you have to be in a leadership position by the fact that you own the business. So you have your team. No one else but me is full time. So that presents a different type of challenge. Is that contractor, how do you actually motivate and engage people? And when they don't like you as a leader, it's not really positional. It doesn't get you to buy in. How you engage with people and how you receive feedback and every single move, all eyes on you. And sometimes it's super hard because I am still recovering from people pleasing, taking things and comments with a grain of salt, and also consider the source when it comes to feedback. People have their own agenda when they give you feedback, and the rejections, even when people say no to you, it's just giving you data. This is not the time for Maya to do the podcast, not yet, maybe in the future. So if you was like, oh, how dare you not accept me? That's really never my mode of operation. So I think that there are people who say, well, I'm so sorry that I'm so delayed in doing this. I was like, no, just change your phrase to thank you for your understanding, thank you for your patience.
Yes, thank you for your patience. That's a great one.
Yeah, you don't have anything to be sorry about. You're a litigator, and I understand. You are a professor. I understand. There's plenty of people. People are writing me from London. People are writing me from Brazil. Can I
so
get
cool,
on your
actually.
podcast? It's like, sure.
Remember that when you get it now.
Yes, I have to remind myself I don't always take it so well. I think that really have been a growth process. The other part is that when people give criticism, how do you view criticism if it's unfair in your opinion?
I think our human response is it cuts to your heart. We want to do a good job. We want to be productive, and we want others to be proud of us and to look up to us, and that's human nature. And so when you've done your best work and worked your hardest and someone says that it's not good enough or that you need to improve, I think the natural response is hurt. But when I receive feedback or criticism, I take time to process it. I'm an introvert, so I process internally, and I like to take a lot of time to consider my responses so that they're very thoughtful. I usually will not have a very good response necessarily on the spot, but I like to take time and respond when I'm ready, maybe the next day or later that day, when I can take that feedback and understand where it's coming from and use it constructively. If it is indeed constructive, like you said, sometimes it's not, but I think most of the time when people do give you feedback and it comes from someone that you trust, it will be constructive. And I love feedback. I love feedback and I love criticism.
I haven't always practiced this, but regardless whether it's constructive or not, most of the time I would not respond immediately, especially when it's negative criticism. I tend to take things personally, and I know that my response will be very jaded, and then it might not be well received. And then I want to make sure that I'm not coming from a emotional response, but a factual. So in the old days when I was much younger, I would like, what do you mean by this? Now I was like, pause. Sometimes I would draft responses, but I don't send. And then I'll go back and revise it multiple times if it really calls for it. But here's the thing that I've also learned. It's easier when I have my own business, but I think it's a little bit harder when you're working in an organization. I've heard that silence is also a response.
True.
And you don't always have to give a response if it doesn't warrant it.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
If someone internally gives me feedback, I will, maybe not immediately, but I need to respond and I need to use it constructively.
Yeah, I think that's why it depends on the organizational context.
True.
Because sometimes people might just like to win arguments. So they would just keep going at that, especially in litigation, right? When I was a young paralegal, not so young anymore, but the litigator, he was a top litigator. That's when I was at Harry. As paralegals, we were doing depot transcript, basically summaries, and in those days. And one part that I particularly like is that this particular litigator, the other side was using every method to bait him for a response and agitate him. This particular litigator only say one word each time. They would say like a whole thing and try to get an emotional response. He would always only say one thing. Noted. It's for the court reporter, it's for him, it's for the other side. And I was like,
wow, that's a lot of
summary,
self-control, restraint, but that's perfect.
yeah, we always feel like that we want to maybe win an argument, or maybe
Yes.
we feel the need to be understood. I
Right.
was like, that one word just says so many things.
Right. Yes, absolutely. Less is more.
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk about, Tina. How did you get yourself into IP career? You
Yeah.
studied to be a chemist in PhD. So from being a chemist to IP attorney?
I always love science and I still love science, and it's one of the cores of my practice now every day. As a scientist, you become an expert in a very niche, particular small area. And I always wanted to think about how what I was working on fit into a bigger picture, and then thinking about how that bigger picture could be used to advance science for human good or something better in the world. I actually met a patent attorney when I was halfway through my PhD, and he was doing his master's in chemistry. And he said, I'll hire you if you go to law school. And he told me what he did, and it sounded really fun. You get to think about science and talk about science and write about it, but you're not doing it in the lab, and you get to help people. So I did. I went straight to law school after I finished, and it's the perfect career for me. I worked part-time at the firm that I was with. He did end up hiring me, so I did law school at night and worked for the firm as a patent agent. And IP is perfect for me because I get to stay close to the technology, but I also get to think big picture strategically. And as we've suggested in this conversation a few times, that anticipating the next step is something key in legal strategy. So I love that part about my job. And one of the things that I'd love to do is work with smaller companies. I work with companies of all sizes, small to large. But when you work with small companies, you really get to become a business partner, not just a outside legal counsel.
There's definitely a difference between the business element and the legal element. As a small startup, when my first year, I didn't know what a P&L was because I didn't have to deal with that before.
Yeah.
So I learned a lot in the past 6 years, and sometimes scalability is something that it's a little bit exciting, but also there's some fear factor in there. It's like, when I scale, what do I have to trade off to get that scalability? So that's something that's always on my mind. Right now, I'm just enjoying the ride.
Yeah, and maybe you don't want that.
Yeah, exactly. I enjoy travel. I enjoy talking to people. There's a brand strategist by the name Rory Vaden. Him and his wife were in a lot of marketing, but also brandbuildersgroup.com. That's what they do. I don't know them well. I just read their materials. But one of the things they talk about is diluted focus, diluted results. You kind of have to focus that diversifying. People was like, oh, multiple streams of income. And said, no, not really. People who make it big, they don't start out with multiple streams of income. They start out with one focus. Then after they make it, then they diversify. But when people online are like, oh, you need to do all of this stuff, you don't. You just end up being everywhere. And sometimes I feel like that may be what I'm doing. So one of the things that I actually did decide to do is investing in the podcast. I started out practicing my conversational skills and being comfortable talking to people. This is season 4. In the beginning, it's just like a substitute for Toastmaster as a practice.
That's
I was
great.
like, I could do it. I love that I can do spirit. When people were talking like, oh, I cannot do it. No, change the framework to be, how can I get it done? And how can I do it? It's just like Robert Kiyosaki, who talked about the rich dad, poor dad. Not, can you afford it? How can you afford it? Right?
Right.
So if I'm putting an event and I don't have enough money, I'll just go get sponsors. They want visibility, I can organize. That's a win-win. That's collaborating. So I think that's been really, really good. And of course, I have to learn to take rejection well. Oh, this company does not want this type of a sponsorship. Maybe I could substitute for something else. I have a team of very creative people that can help.
I love that, Ashley. I think that's perfect, a substitute for Toastmasters. It's like the modern day 2020.
Yeah, the podcast.
Yeah, no, it's true. You have to think on your feet. I'm sure people say things that surprise you all the time.
So the first couple of seasons are mostly IP law. So what we do. We prep. We send questions. We do everything. I don't know what they do to script, but at least I've done my part. I told one of the guests, I said, early on, I really suck. Now I just don't suck as much.
You said, I really suck. Come on my podcast.
I think the early on is the me being very self-critical. Like, I don't like the image. I don't like a lot of stuff, especially for women, I think. Men too. But it's like looking at the video, oh, I don't think I look that great.
Right.
And then it's like, did I say this the right thing? All those self-doubts just surface. And so I think that was what's going on early on. And also for Asian too. I was talking to Helen Wong yesterday, the author of the
Oh, that's right. I saw that. That's so cool. I meant to mention that.
We are going to do a raffle of her signed books. The post is coming out tomorrow. There's 3 questions. The first 8 people that get all the answers right will get the signed book.
All right. I'm going to be monitoring LinkedIn.
We talk about how self-promotion, especially for Asian American, I think it gets a little bit better now, but it's not at all easy for us. One of the things that I've also worked with a brand strategist and a really good friend now, he and we've done an IP Talk Brands Insight series. And one of the key things is self-promotion, kind of yucky, but idea promotion. That's what Seth Golden was talking about too. A lot of academics do not really like this whole personal branding thing. But how do you stand out and have your reputation and with visibility? I mean, consistency is the key, but I think idea promotion and also promoting others. I'm good at promoting others.
Yes, you are excellent at that.
I enjoy that. I'll be sitting here and it's like, I think this person can work with this other person, and maybe they could both be on my podcast. And I just give them a portion of this.
Right, and then you're helping.
Yeah, and the world needs a lot of help right now. So if you can actually do something to that, why not? You know.
And then you're top of mind.
I think we need a kinder world. It's the principle of reciprocity as well. If I'm in a position to be kind to the other people, why not? Filing, great. I will make someone rich and attorneys get less stress, great. But at the end of the day, what am I contributing to other people? The next generation of mentorship, the things that I have learned through a lot of hard lessons. I would really like to have other people spend less time to go through that and kind of take maybe a shortcut, maybe some time for consideration so that they don't necessarily have to go through that. And it really helps with the fulfillment. And it also makes you feel good. At the end of the day, I filed 18 cases. I don't know that there's really that much fulfillment other than exhaustion.
Doing things for others, those are the things that genuinely make you happy and bring you joy.
This particular podcast episode is titled 3 Moves Ahead. Can you talk a little bit about why you choose that, and also describe if there's any right IP strategy making differences between building momentum versus missed opportunity? How does that look for Tina when you have to advise others?
This is something that's come with time. Just as I've practiced law over the years, I think as a junior attorney, you respond and you do what you're told. I'm a patent attorney. I write applications, I file them. Now, over time, as you become more of a legal advisor and business advisor, you help to solve problems, and your goal is to help the clients attain their business goals, mitigate risk, and that comes with getting to know them. And that starts with early on. As soon as you engage, you make sure you understand the business and the business goals. And legal strategy is just a part of helping to attain those business goals. And so what I do now is a lot more training, early intervention, training business people, training marketing. Marketing aligns very closely with R&D. Not always, it should, but I work to help marketing align with R&D, so one hand knows what the other's doing. They don't have missteps, because that's how things happen in the IP world. Mistakes happen. I think that's incredibly important to help educate your clients on what they should be thinking about so they can make some of these decisions themselves. You want to educate and equip them so they know what to look for, so they don't always have to call you. Of course they will, but educating them and their teams regularly, not just once when you engage, providing regular trainings on trade secrets, helping them set up a trade secret program, and then regularly train their teams on why trade secrets are important. Regularly train them on confidentiality. Those things are incredibly important, and it'll help them save legal fees, and it'll just make their businesses a lot more successful.
It's awesome. I love that response. Now, building on that, ownership and alignment issues come up frequently in IP work. Why, in your opinion, is it so common for companies to be not having that that clarity about who owns the technology and what risks does that actually create?
Every new partnership, diligence, acquisition, sale, ownership issues will arise, no matter how big or small a company is. And the reason is when you're building something from the ground up, or when you are acquired or sell something, a lot of individuals are involved in that process. And so that means a lot of individuals that work for the company, outside partners, especially now in this world where our potential business partners are all over the world. We contract with third parties literally all over the world. That complicates innovation ownership, and it's not something that business owners think about early on because it doesn't seem important. It seems important to get the product out there. It seems important to raise capital, but it doesn't seem important to think about who will own this intellectual property that 17 people worked on in 3 different organizations. It just gets put on the back burner, and that leads to a lot of trouble. And another thing that happens is, I kind of mentioned this earlier, that R&D, legal, business teams, and marketing a lot of times don't speak to one another, and that can lead to ownership missteps as well. The first question on any diligence, if you are raising capital or if you are looking for a business partner or looking to exit at some point, is we want to look at the ownership of your intellectual property. We're going to analyze it in detail. It's never clean, and that's one of the biggest risks. And oftentimes companies will realize that they don't own the IP that they thought they owned.
You mentioned something about the money part. So my next question is, when a company is actually preparing for funding, acquisitions, or partnership, what are investors and acquirers generally looking for in an IP portfolio?
Good question. So I mentioned the first one, ownership. They want to make sure you have clean records. They want to know that the IP actually supports the commercial business. So a lot of times companies will early on file for a patent or a trademark thinking about one path to commercialization, and they'll go in a completely different direction and never go back and revisit their old portfolio. So that means that they're spending money that they probably don't need to spend on a portfolio that isn't going to make them money. So they want to know that the IP actually supports where the business is headed. They want to make sure that you have a competitive advantage. So that means that you should know what your competitors in your space are doing, where they are protecting intellectual property. If it's electronics, is it in South Korea? Is it in China? If it's textiles, are you protecting where your competitors are protecting themselves? Because if you're not, you may be surprised one day that they have tried to extend themselves into a space that you didn't think that they would. So you really need to know the landscape, and you also need to have a clear legal plan. Not all companies will have patents, and a lot of companies will rely entirely on trade secrets. Very common, good strategy, but if you don't have a plan on how these trade secrets are protected, how you handle employees moving to a competitor, because of course they'll go to a competitor because that's where their expertise is. If you don't have plans on how you handle managing your intellectual property, then investors are going to think that you're not business savvy, and that's a big risk for them.
And this day we all notice with AI, people still have that know-how in their head too.
Yes.
So getting back to the 3 moves ahead, I really like that title. What does proactive IP strategy look like for this 3 moves ahead theme versus reactive filing?
By being proactive, you think about where you are headed in the market 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And that means working with your attorney to work through that. It's not just necessarily you work on your own, but you figure out where your business is going. And me as your attorney, I can take where you plan to take your business and create roadmaps. And so if we're talking about patent filings, we can create a roadmap to protect without disclosing too much. We can come up with a strategy for what we should file and when, and it doesn't always mean doing everything on the front end. It means coming up with a plan over a period of time. So it's really anticipating what the next business steps are and also anticipating where your competitors are going, and that means doing competitive research. I help with that. On the legal side, there are a lot of very impressive legal tools that help me really map out where the white space is and direct clients to where they should be going. That's a proactive strategy as opposed to launching a product or going to your attorney and saying, we're ready to launch this. We know we should file a patent. We're doing the right thing. Let's file a patent on this. We're going to launch next month. That's not ideal. That doesn't give attorneys enough time. And so again, when I engage someone, I educate them on these important proactive steps so we're not having to respond to what competitors are doing because we already know.
That's wonderful wonderful. I am so curious. This is my closing question. You talk about you train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and you read extensively. Have those practices influenced your mindset and also how you strategize and solve problem in your legal work? And if yes, how so?
So Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, for people who don't know, it's a grappling martial arts sport. It's sort of like wrestling, except there are submissions, so joint locks and chokeholds, and it's very intense, which is very fun. That's why lawyers love it. But you are constantly thinking 3 moves ahead, literally thinking 3 moves ahead, because your next move is a response to their next move. I grab someone's elbow and I know they're going to move it in one direction. I know that. And so I am ready to use the leverage that I know that they are going to create to respond. Or I'll fake a takedown on one side, knowing they're going to drop, and use their downward momentum to push their head down, to take them down that way. So you're constantly thinking about what they're going to do and using that momentum as leverage in your next move. And so that absolutely translates to what I've been talking
Your legal
about
strategy, your jiu-jitsu.
yeah, and it's also jiu-jitsu creates literal pressure on your lungs. So I mentioned chokeholds, joint locks. A lot of jiu-jitsu is learning to breathe and respond under intense physical pressure. Respond with your brain and your body in coordination to physical pressure. They do call it human chess with pressure on your lungs. I mean, that directly translates to how I advise clients through complex legal decisions. And then I read a lot. I started reading fiction probably a couple years ago. I'd always read nonfiction, self-help books, and things like that. But I decided to try something different, and it has changed how I think. Do you like to read fiction?
Early on, it was nonfiction, but now I do a little bit more fiction. Yes.
Okay, we should talk about books, but I like very layered, character-driven stories, and fiction builds empathy. You learn how other people think, you learn to recognize patterns, and understanding how people make decisions is critical in law, just like in jiu-jitsu. I think fiction sharpens that instinct in a way that nonfiction does not. I think it helps reinforce thinking about problems beyond an initial instinct, because you really do appreciate how others think in their heads, because a lot of books that I like are just a person telling a story of something that's in their head. Sometimes it's just one day or one event that they're talking about. And so it's incredibly interesting. So again, I think that that helps me when I'm thinking about opposing counsel on a negotiation or a patent examiner, thinking about how they may be thinking or responding to what I'm saying helps me be a better advocate.
That's wonderful. Yesterday, I had a chance to meet with Helen One in person. Actually met the whole family.
Oh my
And
gosh.
that was so awesome. What a treat. And she did
That's so cool.
in-person podcast at my studio. Like you said, really deep into the other person's mind and then how they see the world and also develop the sense of pattern recognition. Helen was talking about early on, before the book even got famous, she was a young associate in New York City taking the buses, and she would just have a notebook and scribbling her observations about things. From one Asian American to another, we were talking about a lot of similarities. We talk about upbringing, we talk about observation about law firms and the legal industry in general. I asked her, I said, what was going through your mind when your agent called you about Netflix adapting your book into a Netflix series? She goes like, you just keep asking me, am I sitting down? And I'm like, I'm sitting down. That is really,
That's so
really
cool.
amazing. We're also going to be doing an event in New York City in May for AAPI month. That would be really interesting. One of the podcast guests that I talked to, he used to be a senior VP at litigation at Sony, and I used to work on cases with Sony when I was at previous firm, and he was one of the executives that we usually have to write email to.
That's funny.
So I knew him, and he is
Yeah.
now a tech entrepreneur. I emailed him, and I said, Jamie, would you like to be on my podcast? He said, sure. So we talked, and it was so fun. He goes to China a lot for conferences. When you just chat and learn from each other, it's like the most organic way of learning. I told him about, oh, my parents used to own a Chinese restaurant in Lawrence, Kansas, and when we have to move over there, he was like, yeah, it has this burgeoning Chinese community, the most diverse community there. I was like, yep, not. I mean, at least not in the old days. Times have changed. He lives in Queens and comes from a pretty humble upbringing. What I'm learning about is that the common thing is they have nobody to look up to go to law, because nobody in the family or even in the vicinity know that. Anyway, we were talking about this, and he learned about my family restaurant business, and he goes like, well, I should tell you that growing growing up, when I was supporting myself to go to college, I was cooking at a Chinese restaurant. That's funny. What's your specialty? It's so fun to be able to have that connection. And a lot of my podcast guests, at some point, I will meet them in person.
Well, you and I will see each other again at Napaba, hopefully.
Maybe before. Are you coming to the PTAP Bar annual conference?
No, but some of my colleagues will come. I'll have to introduce you.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm actually on the conference committee for the PTAP Bar Association. So the public convention is going to be in LA this year.
That's right.
I plan to go. I'll definitely see you there then.
Yes, I'll see you there.
Tina, thank you so much. Happy Lunar New Year again. And I
thank
really
you.
enjoy our chat. And I know that we'll see each other. Thank you so much. Have a
Thank you,
wonderful
Ashley.
day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.